Mayor, you may proceed.
Good morning. It is Friday, January 15th, 2021. This is the virtual special budget meeting number 2 of the City Commissioners of Rehoboth Beach. Welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9 o'clock a.m. We will do roll call. Commissioner Dick Byrne, you're on mute.
Good morning, here.
Thank you. Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
And Mayor Stan Mills is here. We have a quorum and are therefore able to conduct business formally. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Sharon Lynn, City Manager, is with us. And with me is Kevin Williams, Bert Dukes, and Evan Miller, who I expect to be participating today. Thank you all for coming, and to those tuned in, members of the public, we welcome you. And I'd like to recognize the participants that are registered to speak today, and those are the following. Carol Everhart of the Rehoboth Beach Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce, Citizen Walter Brittingham, Citizen Gary Glass, representing Main Street, Dan Slagle, Greer Manival, Cindy Lovett, Jerry Philbin, and Walt Cassell. Also, Chuck Snyder of the Rehoboth Beach Fire Department, Allison Miller of the Rehoboth Beach Public Library, and Nancy Alexander of the Rehoboth Beach Museum. Thank you for being here. Thank you for willingness to participate. And we'll call on you all at the appropriate times. Thank you. With that, this meeting is a special meeting to continue discussion of the draft budget for the next fiscal year, including capital improvement program, of course, as presented by the city manager. We had a very good first budget meeting a little while ago. I thought we were very methodical, and it worked well. I would like to do the same thing with this meeting. I suggest that we do donations first, so that those representatives of the different groups can leave us after that discussion if they choose. Go on from there, donations to a capital improvement program to review any changes, including discussion of the Lake Gerard ADA compliant tot lot renovations. And after that, go to changes to the proposed main budget, and including discussions after that on potential revenue loss and the value of meterless Mondays, and any other topics that we would like to talk to. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Sharon Lynn and suggest that as far as donations go, it would be helpful so that those members of the public watching can know what the agency is, what their ask was, how much money they're asking for, and then how much we are giving them allotted in this proposed budget. So I'm going to turn it over to the city manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. Excuse me. Make sure the Commissioners do have the information that was sent out from the organization. We'll have that.
Yes.
From yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, great. And can we start with the fire department? Is Chief Snyder on?
I'm here, yes.
Okay, Chief, thank you. Anyone else with you?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so can you just give the Commissioners a rundown, please, of your budget? And I guess they'll ask any questions, but also what is included. What does the fire department take from that $100,000 contribution?
We requested last year $100,000, and you folks were gracious enough to give us that. We've requested the same amount this year. The $100,000 goes into our general fund. That covers a multitude of things. The money that we get is not specifically targeted for any one project. So the money pays salaries, it pays for equipment, It pays for repairs, it pays for electric and so forth, at all three of our fire stations. So, the money, again, just helps us offset a lot of our, expenses that we have. In the next few years, as you know, if you've gotten the report that I give to you, and it was just done yesterday, we may be requesting some additional funding that will be targeted to a specific project, but I don't think I need to discuss that here today.
Thank you, Chuck. And Chuck, I want to congratulate you. This is, I think you were reelected to your second term as president, so we welcome you there. Chief, I'm sorry, Chief. Is that right? 4 years. Congratulations. You know, in the past, the commissioners have made note that of a preference for a lot of the money, most of the money, some of the money, to stay in town for projects. About what percentage would you guess that of the funding it actually does stay in town and benefit our downtown fire department?
Well, Mayor, not to correct you, but we're not a downtown fire department. We have a fire district and we cover a lot of area, as you know. We are the Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company, which encompasses a large unincorporated county area, along with the town of Dewey Beach and the town of Henlopen Acres and the city itself. But I would say right now, probably $25,000 to $30,000 of that, I would say would stay probably in the city. As such, again, covering the expenses of the ambulance and the crew that is in town here, and the equipment that we maintain.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Chuck Snyder?
Yeah, I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner Byrne.
Thank you. Chief, could you just comment briefly on the donations that come from the other government entities that you service, Sussex County, the rural areas, Dewey Beach, and Henlopen Acres?
Right now, the city is very generous to us. Just bear with me a minute as I go down my sheet here. On the financials, I guess for lack of a better word, a copy of the budget that I gave to the city manager. Right now, we're showing that we do, we're budgeting $250,000 for our annual fund drive, and that includes pretty much everything, sending our letters and mailings out to all the individuals in our fire district. Right now, from the city that we request an additional $100,000. We get a donation from North Shores, which includes Henlopen Acres for $1,000, and from Dewey Beach, we get $5,000. I'm sorry, $2,000 from Henlopen Acres separately, $1,000 from North Shores, $2,000 from Henlopen, so that's $3,000 from down there, $5,000 from Dewey Beach. The county, based on their appropriation, is about $220,000. That stays pretty consistent most of the years. That's based on some taxes and transfers and stuff that are in our fire district. There's a lot of metrics there that determine how much money we actually do get from those folks. So that's we get some supplemental ambulance money. Again, it's based on the amount of runs and activity that we have. There's a formula, and this actually goes to all departments in the county. It's not just us. All 21 fire districts in the county are under the same rules, and that's how they get their appropriations accordingly.
Sounds good, Chief. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Chief Snyder, question. Following along that, under Sussex County appropriations, the 2020 budget is scheduled $220,000, but actual comes in at $140,000. Can you give us a little information of why the variant there?
That's what we budgeted $220 last year. Our actual that we took in was $140. Again, it's based on the metrics of construction and permit fees. We think COVID had something to do with it when things slowed down a little bit. We're trying to be positive, and that's why we reappropriated it at 220 this year. Hopefully things will turn around with vaccinations and things coming out, and hopefully if the area comes off of the state of emergency and visitors start coming back, we'll get the people will do additional things, and we'll get the appropriations accordingly.
So that's based on a
Commissioner-
percentage of permits issued? or
Repeat
what?
that, Patrick.
I'm sorry, is that funds based on a percentage of building permits, or how is that funding actually determined?
Yeah, it's building permits. They give us a set for apparatus that we have, for the service that we provide. There is a methodology in the county that they give us so much money accordingly. I don't have that in front of me. I can certainly get that for you to let you know. But the county does have a pretty good methodology on what they do to appropriate. Now, in the same breath, I will tell you, we feel we should be getting more. We take care of a lot of people, protect a lot of stuff that is down here in this area. And, with the addition of the 46th President of the United States next Wednesday, that's going to fall in a little bit under us too. That we're going to have to provide protection to him and some additional things that we're going to be doing to accomplish that with no reimbursement from the U.S. government that we have been told right now.
And could you just remind me again the size of the fire district?
Our fire district goes from Indian River Inlet north to Route 24, west to Angola.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
Hi, Chief. Thanks for coming. You have capital expenses anticipated at $450,000 for a new fire truck.
Yes.
And you had $400,000 in 2020. And how far along are you on that? Are you putting that money back, or are you making obviously you're putting that money back, or you're getting ready? Have you taken delivery of that new fire truck?
Now, that new fire truck is probably getting ready to go online to be built as we speak. Last year when we ordered it, we put a down payment of $400,000 on it. The $450,000 is going to be the balance due, and hopefully that truck is delivered the first part of April to the first to the middle of April.
I want to congratulate you on that. You have $176,229 that you're making payments on a principal and interest on a bank loan. What was that for?
That is for our building out of Station 2 that is on Coastal Highway.
I hear you, Chief.
We still owe a couple $1 million on that project.
Okay. And do you have money set aside that you're and I didn't look through here to see what your interest income is, but do you guys have money invested, liquid assets?
I'm sure we do. I don't have my treasurer here with me, but yes, we do have some monies. I can't tell you off the top of my head. I can probably figure that out for you. I will say this year, this is the first budget we've had where we've actually come out on the plus side, that we're not over budget. It's the first time we've done that in probably 4 or 5 years. So we're hoping, it carries through if everything works the way we anticipate. Right now, I think we're about can't remember. Anyway, I know we're somewhere around $20,000 under our projected expenses versus our income.
When you take delivery on this truck this spring, do you have any others online? Do you have? This
is a new engine to replace a 30-plus-year-old engine that we need to replace. The next thing we're looking at is to replace an almost 30-year-old aerial ladder truck. That is the new piece that I made reference to earlier about wanting to request additional funds. That's probably 3 to 5 years down the road, but it's also at a price tag of almost $1.8 to $2 million based on estimates that we've received so far. We have started a capital campaign, and we actually have received several $1,000s already in that fund to try and get some money, additional monies from the people that we asked for donations from. We're going to look at, hopefully asking the city for some additional monies to help us fund that piece of equipment. That's a pretty major piece of equipment for us.
Sounds like you guys are tapped out. I wish we could give you more. Thanks for answering, Chief.
Okay.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Hi, Chief. I guess my concern is that there's a total of $8,000 that we get from North Shores, Henlopen Acres, and Dewey Beach. And the city's putting in $100,000 and you're servicing them as well. Is there any way that you could request more funding from those entities? Because if really only $30,000 of the $100,000 that we give to the fire department is used for downtown, it seems that perhaps some funding from other places might make some sense.
We've tried. You got to realize this is a bunch of dedicated volunteers. We pay the 15 career people we have out of donations or out of reimbursement from the ambulance trips that we respond to. We don't get paid for every one of those trips. And we just, it's not financially feasible for us to, go after collection on that with the amount of transient and stuff. And sometimes, people who come here don't have an address. All right. So, we're picking up all that extra expense from the generous donations of the people in our fire district, along with the appropriations that we get. The other two entities, yes, we have definitely asked them for more money. And, we're doing that again this year. We've actually already started a process for going down and meeting with both to do that. But it costs, as you see, it costs almost $3 million to run this department. And, that does, that's all done by us donating that time. If we didn't donate that time, I cannot tell you what it would cost all 3 cities in the county to pay career fire department and EMS service for this area. So, I think we're getting a bargain, and, anything that can be done to help us is greatly appreciated. But yes, we have asked, and we ask every year to try and get more money out of these people. No disrespect, but Henlopen Acres and North Shores could surely donate as much as the city of Rehoboth, considering the amount of real estate and value that is down there.
Yeah, I don't question any of the volunteers. They're wonderful, and it's a great fire department. It's just disappointing to me that the other 3 towns are not making more of a donation. I just wanted to make sure that you all were trying, and it sounds like you are. And I hope that you're successful this year with getting some more funds from them.
We are sure going to try.
Thank you. Commissioner Gay, you had your hand up.
Pat basically asked what I was going to ask about, and I was going to ask the chief if he had made presentations to the other communities similar to what he's doing with us today, because it's very helpful. But it sounds like the conversations are ongoing, right, Chief?
Yeah, that's correct. We have presented before to the other communities, unfortunately to not much avail. But hopefully, different people get into office, have different thoughts, and hopefully we can, when we go down this year to do different things to them or present to them, we'll get, maybe a little bit better positive response.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I think we need to be mindful that in past years or many years ago, more than 2 years ago, the fire department asked for different amounts of funding. It varied from year to year, and the city responded with varied amounts. And if you recall, it was, I believe, 2 years ago that the commissioners decided to not only up the amount, but try to stay at a rigid $100,000 to pay back the fire department. So I'm sharing that I'm very comfortable with this amount. I think they do a fantastic job, and I'm glad they show up when called. What I'd like to do for expediency, if there's no more questions, rather than take public comment after each one, I'd like to save public comment after we hear from the 4 different agencies we donate to. Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners or questions for the fire chief? If not, we'll let the fire chief go home. Thank you very much. Chuck. Yeah, that'd be good. Chuck will stay for public comments. With that, Sharon, I hand it back to you. You're muted. Sharon, you're muted.
Sorry about that. May we have the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society, please?
Nancy Alexander, are you there?
Hold 1 second. She has not joined her audio to the meeting.
Okay. Who do you want next, Sharon?
How about the library, please?
And can you remind us what their ask was and what is in the budget?
Certainly. The Rehoboth Beach Library requested a $30,000 contribution.
That's the same as
Is
last year?
library on? Last year, that was the same contribution. They did request last year a little more, but they are flatlining this year at $30,000 for their request.
And what did we give them last year, and
Is
what are we
library on?
anticipating this year?
Yes.
We gave them $30,000 last year, Mayor, and the request $30,000 is in again this year. That's what we put in the budget.
Thank you very much. Allison Miller is here for the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. Welcome, Allison.
Good morning, and thank you, Commissioners and Mayor Mills, for your past and continued support of the Rehoboth Beach Library. In the attachments that was sent to you before was the library's July FY 2021 budget from July to December. I highlighted 2 areas for you in that budget. The blue highlight is the in-kind water support. The way our budget works is the state of Delaware funding is based on expenditures and per capita. And so this in-kind donation counts towards our calculation. And so we can get a little bit more money from the state if we add that into our budget. The yellow highlight is where the $30,000 donation from the city's last fiscal year went. In 2018, the Board of Trustees implemented a 2-year plan to adopt the Sussex County Library's pay scale. This year was the second and final increase to achieve that match. Sussex County has 3 county-run libraries and 1 bookmobile. 2 of those libraries, the South Coastal Library in Bethany and the one in Milton, are within 15 miles of our library. And matching the county's pay scale helps our library attract and retain quality employees. This is essential to help us enable to provide a wide range of services and programs to our patrons. What our staff has done during this year is when we were closed, we did a lot of public engagement through virtual programming and so Facebook and weekly Instagram meetings. When we did reopen for curbside, we began a takeout service for people to pick up books in the lobby, or staff would bring them to the car. And we also have delivery in some circumstances for the homebound. We also offer free prints and pickup services. We have grab and go crafts. And we also offered free books, DVDs, and music in our lobby for anyone to pick up. We expanded our Wi-Fi service through boosters, which are available 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that was implementation through the whole state of Delaware. We have also gone fine-free since March, so we are not collecting fines in any way. The second page that I had sent you is all our statistics that we've collected so far for July and December. Looking forward, we have done some fundraising. We applied for a DCF grant for our capital campaign. We are looking to do some renovations to the library. The building itself is 20 years old, and we have some much needed rearranging to do in the building. We need some more meeting rooms and some more spaces that can be more flexible. We had our first appeal in many, many years. And with that, we raised about $6,500. And with that appeal, we just did an email to our library card holders. And since we stopped collecting fines, we've started doing suggested prices, and I encourage people to pay what they want for their books and for their prints. And with our takeout, we have also included donation envelopes for them to bring back with their books. And with that, we've raised $2,500.
Thank you, Allison. Commissioner Byrne.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Hi, Allison. Thanks for being with us. Thank you for having what I consider a really outstanding library as a resource in our downtown. I utilize the library, and I'm always thrilled and excited by the opportunity to kind of reach across the state and be able to find books that I'm interested in getting through you. Similar to some of the conversation with the fire chief, I'm wondering if you have any sense of how many, I guess, using your language here, how many of your patrons come from a residence outside the city of Rehoboth Beach. Do you have any sense of that?
It's hard to tell. To say for our first appeal, we sent about 6,500 emails, and those are just the patrons who were adults and had a library card that was either a Rehoboth library card or had a library card that was registered in the 19971 zip code. But the way the Delaware library system works is that anyone that has a Delaware library card can use the Rehoboth Beach Public Library, or anyone can use the library because we are a public library. So anyone coming to visit can use the library and not have a library card. So it's really hard to say how our library is used or how many people we do have at one time. The other little kink is the part-time residents. People who have second homes here, they do not count towards our statistic as far as residents in like the county formula or for the per capita formulas. They do not count because they only look at full-time residents.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I understand that. Do you reach out to our neighboring communities, Dewey Beach and Lopen Acres, North Shores, for donations?
We have reached out to Dewey Beach, and it has not been very successful. As far as the others, we work very closely with our friends, and they are our fundraising arm of the library. And so they do a lot of our fundraising as far as reaching out to those communities on behalf of the library.
Okay. So those other geographic communities or governmental communities are not listed under your income areas
Correct.
because you've not collected anything officially from their town or city government. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that it? But you are working with them in an attempt to do so?
Yes, like Henlope and Acres and North Shores have made donations to our Friends of the Library. And because they are their own separate entity and their own separate nonprofit 501c3, they will reflect in our budget as Friends of the Library because we request the funds from them.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Allison.
Commissioner Calusi.
Hi, Allison. Thank you for coming today. I just wanted to say that I also believe that the library does a very nice job for the city of Rehoboth. And I certainly am I will say right now that I'm in support of your request for funds. I think in the amount of $30,000, I'd like to see us move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should be mindful that the $30,000 donation, I believe, is in addition to Rehoboth providing in-kind support through paying a water bill. Is that correct, Sharon?
Yes.
You're
Yes.
muted again.
Yes, that is.
Sorry, you cut out on my end, Mayor. What was the question?
In addition to the $30,000 donation, we also provide in-kind support by paying their water bill.
That's correct, yes.
Which is budgeted
Yes.
$4,000. So total of $34,000.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Allison or city manager on the topic of the Rehoboth Beach Library? If not, Allison, thank you very much. If you would hang around for public questioning in a few minutes, we appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you again.
Thank you. With that, Sharon, can we go to Main Street and same formula? Tell us
Yes.
what they asked for this year, what is in the budget this year, and what was in the budget last year.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this year request for Main Street was $60,000. Last year, the request and what was budgeted was $60,000. That was a $10,000 increase from the prior year, and that $10,000 increase from $50,000 to $60,000 was granted last year. This year, the request again was for $60,000, and that is what is budgeted right now.
Thank you. How do we want to approach this? Would you like to hear from Main Street first? We've got, I think, while we have Cindy Lovett, Jerry Philbin, and Walt Cassell board members on board, I expect that the speakers for Main Street are Dan Slagle and Greer Manival. Are you there?
I am here. Good morning. Greer will not be able to attend. There was a death in her family, so she won't be able to attend. So I will be speaking on Main Street and the other board members. So good morning, Mayor, City Commissioners, and City Manager. Again, my name is Dan Slagle. I am the Executive Director of Rehoboth Beach Main Street, and thank you for your continued support of Rehoboth Beach Main Street and the opportunity to speak on behalf of Rehoboth Beach Main Street. Joining me today is a few of our board members to speak on behalf of RBMS. Cindy Lovett, who is the Rehoboth and Bloom Chair. We have Walt Castle. He is the RBMS accountant. And Jerry Philbin is RBS organization chair. So if I would like to take a few minutes to talk about Rehoboth Beach Main Street and what we have done this past year and what we're looking forward to in 2021. Rehoboth Beach Main Street programs and activities are designed to assist and support downtown Rehoboth Beach business owners, entrepreneurs, and property owners. Promote a positive image of downtown Rehoboth Beach as a great place to live, visit, and shop. Assist them with the beautification of the downtown area and encourage the involvement of community stakeholders. On a personal note, I am incredibly pleased with this organization and the direction that we are heading. It is obvious that our team's mission is dedicated to promoting all businesses. The work that we do is impactful, meaningful, and is inspirational. I am reassured every day that what we do is critical for our community. We hear many stories of how many services are benefiting the downtown merchants, restaurants, and the residents. Under the guidance of a diverse board of directors who play an important role in 2020 are Greer, our president, Greer Manable. She is an executive board member. The president, Greer, is a resident, an avid artist, and a member of the Rehoboth Beach Art League. She is involved with the Cape Business Network and was the past president of the Sussex County Geological Society. We have Edward Korosky. He's the executive board member, commissioner, and our RBMS city liaison. We have Walt Castle, executive board member, treasurer, licensed CPA in Pennsylvania, full-time downtown resident. We have Jerry Philman, executive board member, secretary, retired federal grant program manager, current employee of Camp Rehoboth. We have Blake Carey, executive board member, attorney, the Smith Firm, LLC in downtown Rehoboth Beach. We have Drexel Davison, board member, business and property owner, Bad Hair Day Salon, spa and resident. Bob Tuppy's board member, Rehoboth and Bloom chair, restaurant owner of the Pines and Aqua. Cindy Lovett, board member, Rehoboth and Bloom chair, full-time downtown resident. Steve Curson, board member, treasurer of Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association and a downtown Rehoboth Beach resident. Carrie Klissner, a board member, promotion committee chair, WSFS Bank vice president, retail banking. Bob Cartwright, board member. Bob is the owner, operator of the coffee mill and the shops at the Rehoboth News, is involved in RBS promotions committee, is dedicated to promoting downtown Rehoboth Beach. We have Lynn Meisner, board member, promotion chair, owner of Sassy Chic in downtown Rehoboth Beach, program manager of Delaware Health Information Network. Yolanda, board member, owner of Mariachi's Restaurant in downtown Rehoboth Beach. With the help from more than 70 volunteers, Rehoboth Beach Main Street's accomplishments in 2020 included, but not limited to, the following programs. We have over 150 RBMS members from downtown merchants and restaurants, 60 community members, including Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association, which are friends of Rehoboth Beach Main Street. We are expecting at least a 33% increase this year. Also, our accomplishments are huge for Rehoboth and Bloom, the beautification of downtown Rehoboth. We also have the downtown banner program. We have an awning and sign matching grant program. We hired a social media expert to help us assist in promoting the downtown businesses, events on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. During 2020, we expanded our business membership by over 300% and established business relationships with many community organizations, such as Southern Delaware Tourism, Delaware Small Businesses, the Rehoboth Beach Chamber, University of Delaware, Small Business Development Center, and Eat, Drink, and Buy Art on Delmarva. We created a new vibrant RBMS website to promote Rehoboth Beach happenings and to feature the business members, community partners, and supporters. We brought back the Community Unity Spaghetti Dinner in December of 2018, featuring a Citizen of the Year. Community Unity Dinner was postponed in 2020 until 2021 due to COVID-19. We did the 2020 College and Town Awards to promote downtown Rehoboth as a beautiful place. We provided business assistant workshops with the Small Business Development Center at no cost to downtown Rehoboth Beach businesses and property owners. We successfully advocated for Meterless Monday, enticed locals for downtown shopping and dining. We published an official guidebook to downtown Rehoboth Beach. We sponsored the Santa is Coming to Town event, which was a huge success because it was fun playing Santa, by the way. RBS also supported our merchants during the COVID by social media promoting safety and a positive image of all small businesses essential for the community's economic, and arranging Zooms for officials to work on strategies such as barriers for outside dining and free parking on Monday evenings. We have provided free hand sanitizer, created a Respect Rehoboth public service safety campaign. We have partnered with Shell Brothers to launch the Christmas in July promotion. We supported the food drive and facilitated gift card donations by Rehoboth merchants for first responders. And we provided email blasts of grant opportunities for local small businesses. These are just a few examples of Rehoboth Beach Main Street's 2020 achievements to improve the business investments within the downtown Rehoboth Beach Commercial District. In 2021, our strategic planning includes obtaining the services of an organization development consultant to engage the community and assist RBMS in strategic planning for the following: develop and maintain programs that support local businesses in their efforts to overcome impacts of COVID-19. Develop a web and social media tools and information for small businesses, residents, and visitors during the COVID emergency. Support sustaining our tourist economy. Develop social media and web tools for information. We serve and seek grants for merchants which offer financial offset to sustain associated with the barriers. Partnering with Rehoboth Beach Fire Company, Rehoboth Christmas Parade, Rehoboth in Bloom proposal projects and events, virtual business assistant workshops, the Small Business Development Center at no cost to downtown Rehoboth Beach businesses and property owners. Continue to supply hand sanitizer kits to local merchants. Continue with our banner program, Museum in the Streets, Paul Lovett walking tours we're working on, utility box wraps, Rehoboth Beach newsletter for the latest updates. Continue to promote existing festivals and events already established to bring people downtown to dine, shop, stay, and play. Film Festival, Rehoboth Marathon, Camp Block Party, Sea Witch Festival, Chocolate Festival, Restaurant Week, bandstand events, chili cook-off, gumbo, all these we want to support and promote. Continue to be a resource for our residents and merchants in downtown Rehoboth. Acknowledge grant opportunities, downtown business community virtual round table discussions. Ed and I have working on that. Downtown events, promoting seasonal restaurant specials through our social media, ribbon cuttings, and press releases. Finally, Rehoboth Beach Main Street will continue to work closely with downtown Rehoboth Beach business owners and entrepreneurs, as well as those who reside within the city limits for successful economic revitalization efforts. With the continue of current initiatives and the addition of new programming in 2021, RBMS asks the city's continued support for the new fiscal year to help sustain the services we provide to promote the local economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. I enjoyed hearing who the current board members are and what their affiliation with Rehoboth is. I'd respectfully request that in the future that you type that up for us. I think it would be very, very helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
To our conversation.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions or comments from the commissioners, please?
Yeah, I have a few questions. And actually I had the pleasure. Yeah, I had the pleasure of talking with Dan and Greer yesterday and hearing about some of their plans for next year. And Dan, I appreciate you supplying that the budgets for current year and next year. And as I was comparing them, I just came up with a few questions. I noticed that for 2021, you're expecting 63,000 in grants. Are those? Have you already applied for those? Have you already gotten any commitments for those? Is that a wish or what?
It's a wish. Yeah, we are working towards that. We're looking for grant opportunities every day, and we are working towards that.
And did you didn't have any this past year, right? The current year.
Correct. Right.
And I also noticed, and I guess this reflects maybe a difference in strategy, but I didn't necessarily hear it in your opening, and that is that the program income drops from 57,000 to 14,000. But program expenses only drop about 3,000. So I guess I just wonder why you're expecting so much less in program and event income.
I'm going to have Walt speak on that behalf because he is our accountant. Walt, are you available?
Sure. Good morning, Mayor Mills, City Commissioners, and City Manager Sharon Lynn. Commissioner Gay, to answer your question is we had in program the official guidebooks, which you probably saw around town in the various kiosks.
Mm-hmm.
That we're not, when we did the official guidebook, we actually didn't put a year on it, so it could be multi-purpose over until this year. So that's been taken out of that. And what we're hoping for is to get some additional grants. And we have Jerry, who I'm proud that he's on the board because he has a lot of grant experience, that if he were to get more, some grants, that we could use grant monies to expand on our program and event expenses, especially in Rehoboth and Bloom and some of the city beautification initiatives that we plan for this year.
Okay, so the program income was ads in the guidebook?
The program, yeah, correct. It was about 30 some thousand, and the official guidebook was about 30,000. We kind of broke even with that.
Okay. And then I also noticed the advertising expense is going to rise significantly from 5,800 to 27,000. You're planning to do a lot more advertising next year?
Yes, and that's managed by the promotions committee. We have a great chair. It's general advertising. We're also going to do some app developments that they have on their plan, some brochure and promotional items, and some more social media. And that's predicated, again, that's if we get less grants, we can adjust that, but we put in there what the promotions committee recommend that we try to accomplish this year.
Okay, and then you had mentioned the strategic planning consultant, but I don't see that as broken out, under expenses. Is that also meant to be covered by? I mean, I just don't see it anywhere. So
Grant.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep.
But a different grant from the one because you've already got a grant on there to cover operating expenses, so you would get a different grant to bring in a consultant, presumably. See what I'm saying?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it would seem that 63,000 in expected grants is already accounted for in the expenses.
Correct.
So then there would have to be, I think it sounds like a great idea to bring a consultant in. I just couldn't tell where the revenue is.
That will be in the program and events expenses. There's a amount allocated in there.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
So we do have that, and we're being aggressive with the grants. Obviously, there's certain fixed costs we got to cover, and depending on the grants, the board, as you can see from our 2020 P&L, and I'm glad Dan actually mentioned all the board members. You can see it's a very talented group. We're very cautious, or very conservative as far as spending and stuff, so we stay in line with our spending. So obviously, if the grants come in, we'll love to do some additional promotional and programs. But we're being cautious until the grants come in.
Okay. And then on the positive side, I noticed your Comcast bill is going down. You'll have to tell me how you did that.
Absolutely.
Maybe not now, but tell me later.
Okay, you got it. You got it.
And I guess the final thing I'll ask is I wouldn't have thought to ask this, but the mayor asked it on the previous one, which is in addition to the funding of 60,000, what kind of in-kind benefits do we give? Office space?
Yeah, let me pull that up. So let me just pull that up. Give me 1 second here. I mean, we have all the accounting work is free. All the accounting work that's done, all the donations like the community dinner. We have a lot of volunteer time. We do have that space. We consider that in kind, the space that you've given us for Biden Museum. Those are probably the top items that are in kind, but we do have a line item for in kind.
And electric and water, that kind of stuff.
Electric and water is also included as in kind. We do pay for the HVAC and the servicing and repairs of the HVAC building.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Along that same line, Susan, before we get to Commissioner Gossett, Sharon, can you look up and identify exactly what the in-kind contributions are by the city and dollar amount, so we know what the total is? We're talking about 60,000, and then I think we give them free rent and utilities as noted. But I'd like the public to know what the total amount is that we contribute to this group. In the meantime, while you're looking that up, Commissioner Gossett.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. It is very informative. Just one kind of specific question. The budget, is that on a calendar or fiscal year?
I'm sorry, my mute was on. Sorry, Commissioner Gossett. That's on a calendar basis.
Calendar, okay, great. And you spoke about, Dan, the strategic plan and the consultant. is there a baseline for the strategic plan? You mentioned specific targets or what have you. Is there a written strategic plan currently for the organization?
I'm going to have Jerry speak on that behalf of that. Jerry, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Commissioner Gossett, and to Mayor Mills and the other commissioners. At the moment, there is none, and there is no strategic plan, and that was sort of the issue, and why we felt that it would be important to obtain the services of a organizational consultant who specialized in not-for-profits in order to help us look forward. This was all brought to bear, of course, by COVID-19. There were impacts on us as well as all of the other businesses in town. And we wanted to be better prepared to deal with things like this. But at the same time, we also wanted to figure out what it is we could do better for the businesses and for the residents in the city. So this was sort of our first step of saying, we understand that this is an item that's going to cost us money to do. We've got to find that money, but we think it's important to have a strategic plan that can guide us, for instance, through the next 5 years, regardless of what the contingencies are. We're about to do a strategic planning session in a board retreat starting later on this month. Did I answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you very much. So it's in progress. The other thing on your grants is to follow up with Commissioner Gay for a moment. Do you have a specific target list, if you will, or areas for grants that you're looking for, and a timeline to kind of applications and what have you?
Dan, I'll take that. Yeah. Commissioner, we started last year with proposals to organizations that were focusing on COVID-19 relief. We did 4 proposals last year in 2020. We had 1 small grant out of the 4 proposals we put in. During the time of COVID-19, we realized we're at somewhat of a disadvantage because most of the funding agencies are focusing on relief for community-based organizations to provide direct social services, and also to organizations that provide assistance for the arts during this critical time. There are obviously some grants for small businesses, but because we don't provide a social service, we don't provide a direct educational or cultural service, finding sources this year has been difficult because a lot of the philanthropic organizations have refocused their granting. So we're doing a search right now to try and identify where we submit for the upcoming year. Our hope around the $60,000 proposal was that we would be able to find money to help offset the cost of the Jersey wall barriers for the restaurateurs and other merchants in the city. We realized that the commission has out of necessity said that the payment for them has to come from somewhere else because of budget constraints. But we would like to try and find a source to give assistance to our local businesses who want to adopt that use. So that was the focus on doing that, and we've eliminated the Dana small business grants because they require organizations to obligate the money before they can ask for reimbursement, and reimbursement is not certain. So we're in the process of searching for other sources right now.
Okay, and then thank you very much for that update on that grant process. And what could you help me understand your relationship and support from the National Main Street Organization?
Dan, do you want to take that?
Yeah, we are accredited National Main Street, which we have to go through every year. The National Main Street does provide grants or try to help you get grants, also provide you with the tools to help you grow, to help you with other businesses downtown, the residents. The National Main Street is a resource for us to help us grow.
Yeah, I understand that, but do you have an active relationship with the organization, or are they involved with your committee structure or in this type of thing?
Yes, sir. Patty Cannon is the director for the state of Delaware for the National Main Street. We meet with her at least once a week through a conference call. She's the one that National Main Street is when it helped us get the hand sanitizer for downtown merchants and other resources.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the commissioners? If not, thank you very much, Dan and Cindy, Jerry, and Walt. We appreciate you coming today and participating. Would you hang around a little bit for public comment in a few minutes?
Mayor, may I ask a favor? Could we have Cindy Lovett speak for a moment on behalf of Rehoboth and Bloom? Can we have it? Would that be possible?
Is it about the budget?
Correct. Yeah, Rehoboth and Bloom is we wanted to have a few comments from Cindy.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cindy?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Really quick, I just wanted to thank the city for their support, particularly Liz Lingo and Mike Peterman, and to tell you that Rehoboth and Bloom falls under Main Street's Design Committee, which promotes beautification. And without Main Street, Bloom could not exist because they provide us with critical organizational support such as insurance, 501c3 requirements, and financial help when needed, such as in 2020 when our fundraising dance was canceled. And we had this bill for the 20 new planners that we had put around town. And they were good enough to cover that bill until I could get sponsors for all the planters, which we did. They're now paid off, which we're really excited about. And we are hoping to have our fundraiser dance in 2021. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? I think none. Thank you very much, Cindy. Thank you, Main Street. Hang tight there, if you would, till public comment. With that, we'll go to Main Street. I don't believe Nancy Alexander has come on. Max, can you confirm that? I don't see Nancy Alexander of the Rehoboth Beach Museum online, so we'll go to public comment. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on city donations and funding for the fire department, the Rehoboth Beach Public Library, and Main Street. Carol Everhart, you're first on the list, please.
Carol is not in the meeting.
Not there.
Carol's not signed on. Walter Brittingham.
No comment, thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Gary Glass.
Gary is not on the call.
Gary Glass, and that's all the members of the public. Thank you very much. What we'll do is we'll reserve, I think it'd be more productive to reserve discussion of the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society and museum funding till a future time when Nancy comes on board, if that's all right. With that, Sharon, I'll turn it over to you next. I had suggested, or were you able to come up with any figures for Main Street, or you want to get those to us later date as far as in-kind contributions and dollar amounts?
Yes, Mayor, unless Bert, who's in the room there with you, has that information. I don't have it readily available. We can get it to you later.
That would be fine.
It's in the audit report, Stan, and a footnote. It was presented in the March 31st audit.
Okay.
As far as the year to date, we haven't quantified that.
Okay. We'll have you send us a little memo with that information. That would be appreciated. With that, Sharon, I had suggested that maybe we review the capital improvement program again, front to back, to note any changes, and then pause at the Lake Jura handicap accessible tot lot renovations to get a better update and extra homework that was asked for from the last meeting.
Mayor, is your extra homework the questions? I can go through that now or later when you want. Like, for instance, specific line items that weren't detailed at the last meeting. Is that what you're referring to, an extra homework?
Well, the extra homework was more so on, I think, the tot lot. We had asked for a floor plan or a site plan of the existing tot lot with some kind of overlay of the new proposed footprint, and then just additional details on the cost that was questioned as seemingly increased from the original proposal.
Okay.
So,
I do
so-
have some comments based on the commissioner's request from the last meeting. I can do that now or do that later, whatever you prefer.
That's fine now, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. So there were just some outstanding questions. One of them was property tax assessor, and where is that included for next year? And that's actually we added $25,000 under other professional services for the assessor. The CDP professional services line is in the administration budget. We checked with our consultant, Debbie File, and added $39,200. That is broken down into what Ms. File recommended. That was $13,200 for actually writing of the CDP, $8,000 for the mapping analysis completion, which we're continuing to work on, and $18,000 for the extended schedule and additional tasks and meetings there. So that's $39,200. That's added to the CDP professional services line item in the admin budget. Someone asked for additional information on bus permits. And Evan can address that if you so wish. Was that you, Commissioner Gay?
No, I think it was Pat.
Commissioner Calusi? Okay. Would you like to hear that detail now, or?
Please.
Okay, Evan, are you able to? Evan did some research on prior years, so he can give you that.
Sure. So I did go back because I recall actually quite some time ago that there was a change made to the fee that we charge for bus permits for the convention center parking lot. So I went back and actually on March 16th of 2018, the fee was increased to $250 from 8 a.m. until midnight, and then $100 for overnight parking from midnight to 8 a.m. And that was also enforced from Friday before Memorial Day to the second Sunday after Labor Day, so it was consistent with our parking season. Prior to this, the fee for the permit was $50 a day from April 1st through September 30th, and it was $10 a day all other times. And this was in effect actually since April of 1989. So historically, actually this year we did not sell any permits for the lot, mostly because of COVID. There's some miscellaneous revenue I saw that was charged to that line. However, no bus permits were sold. Historically, going back, looking at 2019 all the way back to 2012, revenue for bus permits has been around, I'd say as low as, looking at the numbers, around $950, as high as around $2,000. The permits that we had sold actually in 2019 and 2018 actually after the increase to $250 during the day and $100 overnight, was actually brought in revenue that was consistent with years prior when the rate was back at $50 and $10. And then if you'll recall, in 2016 and 2017, there was no revenue because that lot was actually closed, so we did not sell any bus permits. So I believe right now, just additional information, we have 3 permit spots for buses that are designated in the convention center lot. Another change that we had made was we had some concerns with tour buses dropping off down at the bandstand, and that actually impeded the dark bus that was trying to pick up individuals. So we required that any tour bus that's dropping off visitors or picking them up actually come to the convention center lot. And they actually utilize the area just next to where those bus permit spots are to pick people up and drop them off. So far the program's worked well. It's just really not, in terms of revenue, doesn't generate a whole lot, but from the change that we made in terms of how much the permit is, the revenue has been consistent with years past.
Okay, thank you. So here's the question, a couple of questions. The $250, that's for parking during the day. And if they're there overnight, then I guess it's $350?
It would be an additional $100, yes.
Okay. And so it says 3 parking spaces that we do have in the lot, but we have buses coming in and dropping people off and then picking them up. It seems to me that there should be some kind of revenue that we get from that. I don't know how everyone else feels, but it seems to me that that would make some sense, because I think a lot of the people who take the bus use the resources, they leave trash, et cetera, maybe not necessarily contributing. And so something should be, I think we need to get some revenue there. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but I think that that would be ideal if we could figure out a way to charge those companies.
Yes.
I think further investigation would be good. I think you make a good point, Commissioner. Next in line, we have Commissioner Gossett and then Commissioner Gay.
Yes, along with those increases back in 18, I had proposed also, as Commissioner Calusi mentioned, additional charges for pickup and drop-off services for buses, not only over-the-road buses, but the buses that bring folks in from outside communities, bedroom communities from the city, come in, spend time on the beach, use our restroom facilities. We supply lifeguard services for a guarded beach, cleaning of trash and what have you. So again, I think that those services need to be compensated for in some manner. When you get either a smaller 19 or 20 passenger vehicle that comes in from a outdoor bedroom community and drops off and picks up, I think that needs to be addressed. Other communities do it. And I think we will see that increase more and more as communities outside of the downtown of Rehoboth really expand. So I would like to see if we could investigate some type of annual permit or bus permit that would be applied for that type of transportation services. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
This is a great discussion. I actually just sort of have a point of order question. I thought we were going to go through the capital budget first and then do the operational stuff after that, but the city manager started explaining some of the changes that had been made based on the last meeting in the regular budget. So we've gone off down that path. Do you want to just continue doing the operational and then go back and pick up capital, or what?
Yes, you're very observant. We're backwards from what I intended, but I think that's fine. Let's continue on this path.
Okay, because I want to, I get, and I'm assuming, City Manager, you have more, right? Because I have some overall observations about the budget, but I don't want to do it in the middle of you if you've got a bunch more stuff.
Well, I was just trying to clean up some information from last. I can do it in any order that you wish.
No, go ahead. My comments about it are probably going to be sort of overall. So, but go ahead and finish on the details, and I'll come back.
Okay. Are we ready to move on, Mayor?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Do you have anything else in the main budget before we get to the capital improvement?
Yeah, just some. There was a question about contractual service line items and what's included in that. Delmarva temp service is included in that. We use that frequently for some temporary staffing when needed. Atlantic Refrigeration, there's a service agreement. There's a fire extinguisher inspection, an annual inspection. ADP time clocks are included in that. A contract with Delaware Elevator Services, and other various contractual services. We have a contract with a paper shredding that's done on a consistent basis. So that was one of the questions for contractual services. Excuse me. And then we did add $30,000 for police negotiations in the admin legal expense. That was not in there before. We'll need that to begin labor negotiations with the police team. And I think we can move on with any other request that Commissioner Gossett might have had regarding the Grove Park Canal Dock. We can do that now, Commissioner Gossett, or when you feel that when it's appropriate. That's all I had.
Well, if you don't mind, let's go back to the CIP. I think we can get rid of that fairly quickly. That's
Okay.
this document.
Yeah, so two changes, cleanup changes were made. There were some further pricing included in the streets department, just to get it clear. The skid steer for under the streets department was initially $73,500, and it was increased to $90,000. We think that the trailer wasn't included with that. And then also under the streets department, the reduced cost, they were able to get a reduced cost for the trash truck from $170,000 down to $125,000. So that's on line 25 in your CIP and line 28 in your CIP.
Thank you, Sharon. That's all the changes I noted in there. Thank you very much. Could we move on to a presentation on the ADA compliant tot lot at Lake Jura? I'm sorry, Pat, did you have something first?
Is now the time to address some other questions about the CIP?
Yeah, we at any time. Do you have something now? I mean, I want to do this. After this, I think we'll have a discussion of the meterless Mondays and the revenue loss and what path we want to go forward. Then we can talk about the canal dock maintenance and some other things that commissioners have brought up.
I just have two things, just in further looking at this and thinking about it a lot. So, I mean, I do remember that the last meeting we had, Mayor, you said that you and the city manager would decide, how we would move forward with grants. And as I understand it, I heard from another source that we've applied for a grant for streetscape for Baltimore and Washington. Baltimore and Wilmington. Is that right?
Yes, that's that. Well, we applied, we addressed that, but we can talk about that now if Mr. Williams wants to further that discussion.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that we're doing that. And on just a sort of general statement, just given what the president-elect said yesterday, there's going to be a lot of infrastructure grants available from federally. And so I hope that we really look to take advantage of that, because I think it would be meaningful for our city. So we really need to keep our eyes open. But the are you going to in the future just let us know when you apply for some of these grants so we know what's going on? Because I just heard this from a separate source. And my question actually on this was, I was looking at it and looking at the bottom line for what our CIP is, given that we have streetscape, which is a $4 million, has right now, looks like a $4 million price tag in 2024. And I realize this is future. And also the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, which is $6 million that same year. I'm wondering if we can move something forward, perhaps the streetscape or some, at least some part of that, more of that, so we're not stuck with the amount of money that we're looking at in 2024 is pretty significant for capital improvement. We're looking at 2022 at 4.9 million roughly, And in 2024, 14 million. And that's just such a huge amount then. And if we have potentially infrastructure grants that we can get, it seems to make sense to me to try to move some of this forward.
Well, I agree with that, Commissioner Calusi. And, first there's a process, obviously. We have to do the design first. And if the grant requests come out where we're able to apply for funding before we're actually ready to do that, then we'll certainly do that. I would anticipate applying for any grant funding that, comes our way. We do that now. And certainly we can give you an updated report on a monthly basis or whenever grants are applied for. We can certainly do that. I was going to just briefly mention the Wilmington, Baltimore grant at this afternoon's meeting. So I have an update on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from any commissioners? If not, then can we move ahead to discussion on the need for the tot lot renovation at Lake Jura and upgrading it for ADA compliance?
Certainly. Mayor, Ms. Lingo was not available at the last meeting, so she is on now. So she will give you a report on that.
All right, thank you. Liz, at the last meeting, we were interested in seeing what the original existing floor footprint is with an overlay on what the new size and scale of the ADA compliant tot lot is, and just general discussion, I think, of what the new components are.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yep.
we can. Thank
Okay.
you, Liz.
So I do have the overlay pulled up on my computer and I can try and share it. I'm not sure how well that will go because I've not done it before. But basically it amounts to about a doubling in size. So the proposed would be 1/4 of an acre. And it would bring the whole play area closer to our one ADA walkway there. I believe it's right off of the parallel. We have that parallel parking. So it would save us a lot of money in terms of redoing a whole hardscape ramp to the playground. Because
Liz, can you try to share? If you scroll your mouse toward the bottom of the screen,
yeah,
there should be something there, a button that says share.
All right.
There we go.
It comes up.
Yep.
There we go. There we go. So again, point out the in black, I guess, is the existing footprint.
Right here is existing, and then this would be the proposed. So you can see we shift it over a little closer to this walkway here, which is ADA compliant, I believe, or at least can easily be converted. I'm not sure if we have the correct truncated domes at the entrance. Otherwise, they would, over here, we would come in down this all the way. So if you were in a wheelchair, crutches, whatever, braces, you'd come down, over, and in this way. And there's a question because there is a little bit of a slope here. I'm not sure if we would have to put in a platform because it's a pretty steep slope. So it might even have to be like a strange zigzag to come in that back gate. And then also as it is now, once you get inside, it's completely non-compliant with today's standards. And that being said, it was built, 20, maybe 30 years ago. So the standards have changed a ton since then.
So what I'm seeing, Liz, is the new area has moved westerly. It looks like it could save a lot of trees rather than expanding easterly.
Yes. And we have to take into account what trees we'd be losing too. Part of my job, besides all the playground stuff, is when we go for our tree, like if we're talking about trees to save during, say, a road project, how valuable is the tree to us? So if you can see these those are the evergreens and they're pines. So all these pines are actually an invasive species. I think there might be one native stuck in there. So they're actually a detriment, quite honestly. The state, years and years ago when I worked for them, we were actually removing them. They invade the dunes very heavily. And then there's 3 trees right here that are London planes, somewhere in that 4-inch range. They have been 4 inches in the 5 years that I've worked for the city. They're just not well suited to the area right there, I guess. They were planted before me and just haven't done well. So all of them, the loss of these trees with what we would replace would definitely be a net positive, environmentally as well as aesthetically. And of course, as they are now, the trees are much too close to our play structure. Generally want about a 12-foot clearance, and we're having to go in every other year and clear them back from the overhang.
So I'm looking at it, the new one appears to be estimated 3 times bigger than the current one, or twice as big.
I mean, I did a rough estimate and it came out around 2. I'm sure if we went back to the engineer, they'd be able to get it exact, but at least gives you a little bit of a visual. And partially, if you guys have been to the playground, it is very, very small. Part of that is when it becomes ADA compliant, we have ramping. So it's just partial ramping for what we're proposing versus a full ramping. So an individual in a wheelchair, crutches, braces, etc., is able to access part of the playground equipment. So that requires ramps and platforms, and that takes up a lot of space.
Right. And there's no contemplation of an entrance to the park up at the opposite First Street where the sidewalk crosses the street there?
Which one? This one over here or this over here?
That one right there.
I think that's where our targeted entrance would be, so that we would have to add less. It doesn't even have to be hardscape. We could do rubber walkways like we had proposed for the playground itself. So those are recycled and completely permeable. So they can cut down on some of the hardscaping. But that would be, devil in the details, so to speak.
If the commissioners recall, we received some email communication from Patricia Davis with the Henlopen condos. I think she was speaking for herself, I don't recall, but she expressed some concern with the park. Maybe this will allay some concerns, because it's not moving any closer to the building. In fact, it's moving just a little bit farther away. But I wanted us to be mindful of her communication to us. With that, are there any commissioner questions? Or Liz, do you have a drawing, a rendering of the park that you can show us?
Of the proposed, I have a ton, but I don't know if they're actually on my computer. They're more like large scale drawings. I'm sure you guys, for those of you who I'm repeating this year, I know we looked at them last year, but I don't know if they're actually scanned on my computer that I can share, but I can send them.
I thought at the last meeting we showed something, and so we kind of got a preview, but if you can find any renderings for a future meeting, that would be appreciated. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I do.
Commissioner Caluzzi.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for the information. This is the only playground that we have that has ADA capability, or accessibility, I should say. Is that right?
Well, most of our playgrounds were built very long ago, and quite honestly, we're coming up on replacement timeframes for them all. And as I said, a lot of the requirements have changed in the last 15, 20 years, for the better, obviously, to be more inclusive. So when we talk about this playground, it wouldn't just be accessible, which basically means somebody with a disability can enter the playground, because what's the point if you can get in the playground if you can't get across the surfacing and if you can't use any of the equipment? Right. So this would actually be inclusive, and it would be the only one we have.
Okay.
And that was recommended to us by a few different consultants and inspectors that we eventually will find ourselves in trouble that we do not have a playground that meets these requirements in this day and age.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad that we're doing this. Is it sort of a one-for-one type of substitution, if you will, for having an ADA type of equipment that would be inclusive instead of what we have, or is there going to be a mixed bag of what it would be?
I guess the best way to answer it would be somewhat mixed, because like I said, there would only be, we actually have only partial ramping. So there would be, I think there's a guideline where a minimum of, I could be getting the number wrong, but a minimum of say 1/3 of the play features have to be accessible to all abilities. And we go obviously above and beyond that, but we're not at 100% because we'll have regular swings, we'll have, but for example, our whirl will be 100% inclusive. So every ability, but that's the whole point of these playgrounds. And if you go on any of the manufacturers' websites, this is like their front page, is that anybody, any disability, they can all enjoy it together. And there's no separation between play abilities.
Got it. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree.
Liz, remind me again of how many trees are being removed.
I think we can count on there 1, 2, and keep in mind, this was a rendering. Like when we get the actual finalized design, we could shift it if we had a really valuable tree we wanted to save, or maybe one on the perimeter that really we'd be happy to see go. But it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10-ish. Assuming none would have to be additional, would have to be removed for demolition, which we look like we should be okay with that.
This is a significant amount of space directly adjacent on the watershed of Lake Jura.
Mm-hmm.
I'm troubled by the amount of space that's taken up in that watershed. Well,
remember, it's fully, it's permeable.
Yeah. So. Do you have a topographical rendering of that or anything? What is that?
Well, this is the topo.
Huh?
This is the topo rendering right on the shared screen, if it's still sharing. Nope, I think it went away. Let me try it again.
Is it the one you've had up?
Yeah, that's a topo.
Okay.
There we go. I think she's back.
Yeah, and I'm thinking
if you would like to see a rendering, Evan Miller can share his screen. Why don't you do that, Evan, real quick?
Yeah.
Right, we had this last week.
Oh, perfect.
Can you describe that a little bit, what the surface is? You said it's permeable.
Yeah, so they call it poured in place resilient rubber. So it's 100%. And I think last year I'd even brought samples to when we had in-person meetings. But it's used for a bunch of different things now besides playgrounds. It's kind of the new surfacing of choice for tree surrounds and sidewalks where they've been impacted by trees. But it's a permeable poured in place recycled rubber. So we get fantastic drainage as well as it being fully accessible and super low maintenance. So right now, as it is, every year we have to spend around $10,000 re-upping our basically mulch. We call it engineered wood fiber because it's a impact attenuation. So when most injuries on the playground are caused by falls, so we have to have that certain level of give. And what happens with the other surfacing, the essentially mulch, as soon as you put it down, it becomes compacted. Now we can go through and we rake and fluff it up, but as soon as you step on it, it's right back down. So the poured in place maintains that impact attenuation without that type of maintenance. So it's a much safer as well as more environmentally friendly option.
Have you
Liz, I've stated in the past that I've thought that every project that we do needs to have a maintenance component in there.
Mhm.
Is there maintenance figure included in the capital budget for this?
Well, so the surfacing itself would have to be resealed. I think the going time frame is about 8 years, and then they have surfacing that's been in place for 40, 50, longer than the play equipment itself. In terms of other maintenance, it's just the same as what we do now, which is trash, leaves, dirt, and debris. And the equipment would be as well, the same maintenance, same inspection frequency. The only maybe little bit different thing is we'll have less trees surrounding the playground, and we'll have the sunshades installed. So they have the same lifespan as the other components, but that's the only significant difference besides the inclusivity.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, anything else?
Yes. Have you looked at alternative areas in town that might be suitable? It looks like you're just about going to totally redo this playground, and maybe find an area that's not so close to heavy traffic, or maybe would be more accessible to increase parking, or maybe an area that you could even put a little parking area, some parking for the users. I just I continue to find this troubling, being in the immediate watershed of Lake Jura. However, I do applaud you for searching out totally pervious structures to cover the ground. Those are just general questions, and I'm just voicing my apprehension. And thank you very much for the work that you've done.
Thanks. So as you know, Commissioner Legree, I grew up like 1 block away, so I don't think anybody probably cares about Lake Jura more than me. And, it's a difficult balance with having amenities for our public, our visitors, our residents, attracting people to it, and still maintaining a natural open space and beauty. And I don't think that'll detract. I think it's going to add to the overall viability of our park. I mean, we have so many, it's probably, besides Grove, the most active park year round. You can't drive by without people walking on those trails. And, I know several people that live in other towns that actually come in town, Rehoboth, to walk around and jog through our city streets and parks. And the reason this, I think, is the best spot, number one, it is the oldest playground and it needs to be replaced. And we are on a time crunch in terms of meeting our requirements. Number two, it has the most open area, and this will be the least impactive, where we have a ton of available parking. And I'm not sure if you were a commissioner, but we did draw up a whole future plan to kind of redo the parking, redo the park, and make it way more visitor friendly, which didn't have great reception, but the thought was certainly there. And then on top of that, think about Rehoboth Elementary just did their brand new beautiful playground. So it doesn't really make sense for us to make that our Stokely playground the showpiece, because it's 200 feet from their playground. So geographically, this would be the best one. And then Grove is already so tight on space and usage right now that, and it's probably the one that's in the best shape too, in terms of replacement. Then the parking is going to be so challenged there with all the different uses. This really came down to the best one, short of maybe demolishing part of our woods, which is always in our CDP and through our other consultants, been determined to be a passive recreation exclusively and full of natural beauty. We have great little wooded spots. So that's kind of how we arrived at this spot, a combination of necessity and thought, I'd say.
Well, there's certainly a need. I'm pretty much comfortable with it. If we retree some of that area there rather than denude it all. And what I'm not comfortable with, though, is the Lake Gerard master plan, and that's a future discussion at some point. We've got Commissioner Gay and Commissioner Gossett.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. I got a lot of stuff here. First of all, I have heard from a number of people with various concerns over the last week, just since we first heard about this at the first budget meeting, and of course we talked about it last year. So in terms of the trees, yeah, I mean, I'm very concerned about the loss of trees. I understand. I mean, and actually, I'm a little confused by what I heard today, because you were saying the black pines were invasive to the dunes. Well, they're not really near the dunes there. But then you also said we might be able to save a few. And it's like, well, if they're invasive, why do you want to save a few? So if you want to save a few, why don't we try to save more? Because they're mature, they provide shade in a way that replacing them with a 2.5-inch caliber tree won't, at least in the short run. So I'm very concerned about the positioning of the playground such that we take down as few trees as absolutely necessary. That's one thing. But let me also talk about the sort of scope of the plan, because in our budget and everywhere else I've seen this playground listed, it's called a tot lot. But today I'm hearing it called a playground. There's a difference, and the size may go into that. In other words, are we doing an upgrade, an ADA compliant, an inclusive tot lot for small children like we've had all these years, or are we expanding it to be a playground for children of all ages to be inclusive? That makes a huge difference in the cost, in the layout.
Sure. So it's expanded to all ages. It will not just be for the 2 to 5 age range. In terms of the trees, what I referred to in saving some would be saving specimens. So trees that are highly desirable versus maybe trees with flaws or invasive species like that. Like, for example, the 4-inch London planes that are 7, 8 years in the ground.
Yeah.
We'd be much better getting rid of them and putting in trees that are going to do well, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And in terms of the black pines, I mean, if you notice, it's kind of one of those judgment calls. We haven't been actively removing them. We have had them pruned just for safety reasons, but we really should not be spending a lot of money to try and preserve them, quite honestly. So it's kind of one of those, like, we're not going to stamp it down on something on top of them intentionally, but we're not going to make design changes and accommodations that cost money to preserve them.
And what are the specimen trees you're talking about?
I'm talking in general terms, specimen trees. So say we had a really nice 15-inch Zelkova or a 20-inch London plane or a 17-inch healthy pin oak. Those are the ones that we, citywide, not just for this project, that we really want to go out of our way to spend money and time on preserving. Things that we really want to be a part of our inventory. So it's not just about numbers of trees, sizes of trees, species, it's everything for their total value to our city and its residents.
Right, but you're saying there aren't any in this particular location?
Not that I can think of, no. I think there might be one maybe like 8-inch London plane that's pretty nice. So depending on where it falls on that map, it would be worth doing a little work around for it. And I think it might actually be out of the footprint. But keep in mind, with that footprint, we can shift it 5 feet closer to the road, 3 feet closer to the sidewalk. That's, we could shift it 10 feet east or 5 feet west.
Okay. All right. Now, then to go to the overall cost. Last year's budget, it was $250. And suddenly it has grown. Well, let me finish, because there's a little bit of a timeline here, because I went back and looked at all of the presentations last year because I was confused as to why it suddenly became $350. So that is one question. It was $250. We reduced it to $100 in last year's budget. And of course, that didn't happen because that got deferred because of the pandemic or whatever. But we reduced it from $250 to $100. And at the meeting where it was reduced, the city manager confirmed that it would be ADA compliant. So we did not give that up in reducing the cost. I assumed that we would reduce the size, and yes, I believe that was stated, that we would just replace it in kind in the current location without increasing the size, but that it would be ADA compliant. So I'd still like to see that back on the table for any number of reasons. You know, people do enjoy that park, but there are a number of people that enjoy the shade of that park and are not exactly thrilled about having it, having more of it be consumed by a playground. I guess the other thing I'll mention in regard to that is I know it needs to be replaced. It needed to be replaced last year probably. So I understand the clock is ticking. It's probably not safe now. Definitely needs to be replaced. But I'm also mindful that in the expansion of it, you really get into questions of the whole Lake Jura master plan. And I know you raised that and you said there had been a draft of a plan that was not positively received. You know, in an ideal world, you'd have a master plan before you expanded a playground like this. So in a way, this is backwards. I understand it needs to be to some extent because of the age of the equipment and the replacement. But I'll just mention that too, that I'm not sure how much of an expansion we want to take on when there is no master plan for the large, very important, very valuable park that it sits in. So I'm just totally concerned about this for all.
Well, I would agree with you in terms of the master plan, and that is what we attempted to do. Unfortunately, there just wasn't any good reception and any support for that. Unfortunately, we cannot leave it the way it is. We have, you know, over Christmas, I actually was going to my parents' house and had to kick people off the playground, off duty, because they were there. We've had a swing stolen with the chains left dangling. I mean, it can't be. Now, we can replace that playground from last year's numbers as is for $100,000. That's the cost for exactly what we have right now. And that would include the ADA walkway, which would be where they would have to go all the way down and around. So yeah, we could definitely do that. I don't think it would meet any of our goals and wouldn't relieve us of our liability. And it really wouldn't be an added benefit to the community as a whole. It would just be keeping what we have and not really making any improvements or strides forward. And, you know, unfortunately, I think whenever you make changes, it's very difficult for people, especially when they don't want to see increased usage of our park. I, for one, want to see more people come to that playground and more people use it. And I understand that maybe the neighbor right across the street doesn't want that. But and it's a difficult job you guys have trying to balance that versus, the people quarter mile away or the people renting a house down the street who are going to be amazed by this new playground.
Liz, let me just chime in here for a second. Thank you for that great detail. I recommended, after I heard what Liz just said earlier in a staff report that she gave me, that we just remove all the equipment. If we're not going to move forward with any of this, because I don't think it's valuable to replace in kind. We do need ADA accessibility. That was pointed out to us by a consultant that we hired. We will be applying for grants. We need to fund the total amount in order to get those grants. That's why Commissioner Gay, it went from 250 down to 100. We thought that we would get those grants, but we put that amount in anyway. Of course, we didn't apply for that this year because of COVID, but after 2 years now, this is the second year, I would recommend we just remove everything, denude, if you will, the entire space and leave it there if we're not going to come up with the funding or the potential funding, again, with grants in mind. It is a popular area, as Liz mentioned, and we do face some liability if we don't adhere to the plan that we have.
Well, yeah,
two questions, and then we've got to Commissioner Gossett and then Commissioner Clusie. Two questions for me. One is, are we as a municipality actually required to have a minimum number of ADA compliant playgrounds if we have them? And if so, if we delete the one at Lake Jura now, where are we going to put a ADA compliant tot lot or playground?
So we aren't required to have playgrounds at all as a municipality. That's completely of our own doing as a amenity to everyone. But if we have them, they have to be compliant. Yes.
And it should be.
So any future upgrades, we need to be compliant.
Yes.
So our only opportunities really would be to modify the Stokely Avenue Park over by the school, which you said is in close proximity to an already compliant ADA compliant playground.
Mm-hmm.
The other playground would be Cranberry Park, where there's merely 2 swings. I think that's it. So that area I think is too small. And then the other area would be Grove Park. So with that, I'll go to Commissioner Gossett and then Commissioner Calusi.
Yes, thank you. Just curious, we were talking about lifespan of that equipment and discussion. Can you give a general guess? Is the lifespan of that equipment 12 months, 2 years? Any educated guess of how long until it would have to be condemned, if you will?
The existing equipment?
Yes.
We're at that point. It's not usable right now any longer, quite honestly. And part of when we did the estimate to replace it, they included the demolition as well as a discount for the state contract. So if we're just going to take it out as is, we would have to budget. I mean, they can demo a house for $20,000, so I'm assuming this would be less than that, but we would still have to get estimates for demolition of the equipment, and then also to then make that area safe again, right? So we'd have to regrade it, reseed it, stuff like that.
And in going forward with what is suggested in the budget at the current time, what would be the time frame on completion of that and the project time frame?
That I don't have a great answer for, honestly, because with COVID, I am not sure what the manufacturers normally it would be really quick. They could be out in a month and get it done. I'm not sure if we have a very severe manufacturer's delay for COVID. So that's something, if we were serious about moving forward, I would reach back out to our contractor and see how that was looking.
Okay, and going back to the earlier questions about grant funding, in upgrading this to a full ADA compliant area, is there additional funding that might be available through grants, being it's ADA expandable, or does that help or hinder us in that regard?
It definitely helps. So every time we've done an upgrade or a new playground to the park, I don't think we've done a playground that hasn't gotten the state grant, the ORPT. And we have been very fortunate in getting quite a bit of money from them if you look back at our history. Then when we add the inclusivity and the ADA part, there are a bunch of other grants that open up to us, not just statewide, but for example, the Reeves Foundation has really great grant program, $25,000 for a direct benefit to kind of the type of stuff we're talking about, above and beyond the minimum. So I think it definitely helps us. And on top of that, we would have resources. Last year when we were initiating this, I reached out to the school district, the consortium. They have a couple of experts there that were more than willing to provide input from the public and the children's point of view, as well as their, time working with those kids.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Commissioner Calusi and then Commissioner Legree.
Liz, I think we need to move forward with something like this. It's clear that if we're going to, either it has to be removed or we have to make this ADA inclusive. And I think that one of the ways that we, when we approach these things, we always, and you're already, I know the city's already doing this. I know Sharon and you and folks are already going after grants to cover this. And I think that that's, if we get a grant, then I think we ought to do the best that, go with the project that you've suggested. So, I think that that's really important. We need to have, if we're going to have playgrounds, we need to have ADA inclusivity. But back to the idea of a master plan for Lake Jura Park. I do think that really, I know that there was something presented to us, but that presentation of what was thought of as the master plan for Lake Jura Park, to me, didn't really include all of Lake Jura. Lake Jura extends, we have the fishing pier, and then on the other side, we have that one swing set, and we have the Navigator's Garden. I think we should be looking at all of that when we talk about a master plan. I think that's really important. The Navigator's Garden is used a lot by adults. People sit there all the time. If we could replace perhaps that one ancient swing set with perhaps something that would also make some sense. So I'd like to see, and I think it's important that we put this together sometime soon, the master plan where you have already included this ADA inclusive project and see how it all fits together. So
Commissioner, thank you for that. I agree with you, and we'll get back to that. We were planning to have some conversations with the folks nearby because of what we laid out last year, but then COVID stopped us from being able to proceed with that. I totally agree, and we need to have a master plan for that whole area. We rolled it out in baby steps, if you will, and probably, folks were taken aback with just what we proposed, but that wasn't anything final. We were just looking at what could be there, and we need to continue those discussions. So we will continue to do that.
Yeah, and I think input from commissioners and/or public that maybe addresses the kind of things that people might like to see, might be of use. Maybe it's a mind mixer kind of thing. I don't know, but I think it also helps in our conversations where some of the first things you might say is, we're looking to, we're feeling, pretty good, 70% sure, 50% sure that we're going to get a grant for this. I think it kind of makes a difference of then how we think of these things and whether or not, they're more realistic than not.
Well, yeah. I don't think anybody can say they feel sure, but looking at our history, it would be unusual if we did not get a grant. But nothing in life is guaranteed, right? Especially who knows how much money the state will be allocating to that program this year. To me, the Parks and Recreation grants are probably more important than ever with COVID. But that money all has to come from somewhere. And in terms of the master plan, you have to keep in mind what we provided was just an initial rendering concept. So without spending $30,000, this is to see if there was an appetite to move forward with drawing up a full master plan. And so when it didn't receive great feedback, we kind of just put the kibosh on it instead of spending more public money for something that nobody was, including the mayor and commissioners at that time, were not in agreement on. So we can certainly move forward with doing a full master plan for this park, every other park. But it's just money.
Well, but again, I think that the whole idea of quote unquote Lake Jura Park just, didn't take into consideration all of the park. I mean, all of the lake. The park extends along the water and behind houses on Olive Avenue. And it's where the problem is, where there's a buildup of whatever that is, accretion, I think it's been referred to. Yeah, and that ancient swing set, and how to perhaps, take what's there at the Navigator's Garden and look at putting other things together with that to expand. So when I say Lake Jura Park, I mean all of it. I don't mean just that section where the current tot lot is.
Gotcha.
Well, I think one option could certainly be to pause on the tot lot, have it removed, pause on it until we address the master plan. Commissioner Legree?
I'll second that. And also until we get a comprehensive stormwater management plan that's going to have to change the topography of the of this watershed of Lake Jura, and that has to come. I was going to ask about other things like stormwater pipes and stuff like that, but I agree with the city manager. Maybe we could talk about this. And I too shuddered when I saw the master plan laid out a year ago or whenever it was with this rendering, and also thought about the west side of Lake Jura. But yeah, I'll second your motion.
So what's the favor of all the commissioners? Susan Gay, you've got your hand up, but I was going to ask, what's the favor of the commissioners on pausing this or taking it up again at the next workshop meeting so we can discuss it further? What's your pleasure?
I think I'd like to continue this. And I think it's wonderful that the idea of the master plan has come back up. I would love to revisit that. I'm a little troubled by this kind of all or none thing here. I don't think it should be zero just because I have a problem with 350. I mean, last year we reached a compromise, and so I'd like to think that could happen again, both with the expectation of grant funds coming in as part of it, or a reduced cost or reduced scope. But also the 61,000 for master planning for Lake Jura is in the following, 23's long range CIP, and that could be perhaps brought back into this year as well. I don't know that I want to leave it completely barren for a year because we may have to, but I think it's unfortunate because there are ways. It sounds like to get some of the equipment in there in the short run, but. I was going to say something else in regard to the plan. Yeah, well, like I say, I don't think the playground should either be 0 or 350. Likewise, I don't think that the master plan, just because the last one was not well received, doesn't mean we should just stop. So I am glad to see that come back and would very much support working on that.
Well, I personally was not very receptive to that last master plan in totality, pretty much. But I do believe in the concept of a master plan that Commissioner Calusi suggested. So, if you believe in the doing a master plan, then it seems to me it's most productive to abandon that tot lot for a while, let it sit fallow for a period of time until we indeed do have the master plan, because otherwise the master plan is going to have to immediately revolve around what the new tot lot looks like, and then it's wasted money perhaps. So again, I can put this on another agenda for further discussion.
Yeah.
But we don't need to come to a conclusion today, obviously, but we've got a few more budget meetings, but I need a path forward.
Right.
Commissioner Calusi.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I don't think we should come to any conclusion today either. And I don't think it is 0 or 350. And who knows, it could be 450. One of the things I think we should make sure we take advantage of is, okay, let's go ahead and apply for a grant. We're all sitting here worried about what the dollar figure is, and it could be 0 from us. Who knows what it's going to be? But if we don't apply for it, it definitely will be, cost us something. So I think we should, and again, this does not be a conclusion, but I'm just saying how I feel about this. I think we should take the current project, apply for a grant for that project. That's going to be a dollar figure. If there's got to be some modifications to the project, a little later, so be it. But it's also a timing issue. I think we apply for that grant. I think that we also look at the master plan, moving that up and moving forward with that now, because we could be working on the master plan, and then come 7 or 8 months from now, maybe that's when the new tot lot goes in. Or the ADA inclusive tot lot goes in. So that's what I think. Let's not just totally take it off the table, denude, as you say, and remove everything and then not move forward with the grant. If we have to close the playground, that's fine. But let's make sure that we're not going to leave it there for a couple years that's not usable.
So Commissioner
Well,
Clutie-
I have not heard, I've not heard that the dominant concern was money. It seemed, the dominant concern for me seemed, what I heard seemed to be placement lakeside, design, size of it, doing it without conjunction with the master plan. So again, I am probably leaning toward pausing on this, and instead of putting money for the tot lot possibly, put it instead to master planning. Who else has their hand up?
And so you're saying don't apply for grants? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I know, apply for grants, but if you get them, then what are you gonna do? The grant could be for master planning, but until the master planning is done, should we really invest in a tot lot and establish a footprint before the master plan is done? There's cart before the horse type of thing. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, the conversation I'm hearing is about a master plan, and I think it's proposed for 2023 to move that to 2022, but in producing an RFP for a master plan, I don't know one had been done before or not, but to take a hard look at that, with including in that, though, the concept of having a play area, ADA enhanced play area that would be included in that, with the consideration of stormwater management, of permeable surfaces, of the tree treatment in the area. And also, I know we're going to have a presentation this afternoon about the north end of Lake Jura to bring that into play. So it is a comprehensive look at that entire piece of property and what we want for it now, and also perhaps with the changing demographics of our municipality going forward in 10 or 20 years, as to are we going to have a different demographic of additional children, less children, look at the census coming out, this type of thing, to have those as a part of the consideration in developing that RFP, to really not just looking at next week, but also next year and into the future beyond that. So if we were to look at a very comprehensive RFP going forward, I think that would bring all this together in one spot that could have everybody's interest brought together and then prioritize them in moving forward. Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, I would say we're obviously not coming to conclusion today. I think maybe it's we just put it on our next budget meeting rather than at the workshop meeting. And I think it would be helpful, perhaps, for the drawings that were online today to be available to us, so we can look at them. Any other comments, Sharon or Liz, on this particular project?
I did want to comment on something Commissioner Coluzzi said, and it is budget related. I think an option, because we do have to have the money, have it for whatever we do, whether it's planning or the playground, it has to be fully funded in the budget to apply for the grants. That being said, say we want to fully fund $350,000, but come to the consensus that if we can't get grants worth at least $100,000, then we won't move forward. So I don't know if that's a feasible option or not, if the budget is the primary concern.
And that's kind of what we did last year.
Yeah.
It's a good plan. So we'll continue discussion. I do want to go to members of the public. Did Carol sign on? I think
She's not going to be in the budget meeting. She's only going to be in the.
Okay. Walter Brittingham.
Good morning. Thank you. The first comment, I got many, but I'll try to abbreviate them. The comments in the paper, et cetera, about the meters, the ocean front charging stations at the Henlopen, and you wonder why that they didn't hold up, but most things are not made to hold up near the ocean.
Walter, we're talking about the tot lot and playground right now.
I know you are, but just as much so Mariners Park and the tot lot and bathrooms. There are so many things that fall into this, and a lot of good stuff, because it's not a tot lot anymore. Now it's a playground, and moving it west, this is deserving of a whole meeting where people can talk about it, and somebody can have a chalkboard and mark up all the things or put the items in ahead of time. And this is very, very heavy stuff. Last time it was a plan. We didn't know about it coming. We don't know how much it costs. And there's a lot of very, very good thoughts here. And it ought to be a separate meeting, and it ought to be publicized in the paper so people know about it, and not in the dead of winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Mr. Gary Glass?
Not on the call.
Dropped off, and that's it for members of the public. Everybody else was those agencies we talked with this morning. If any further comment from the commissioners? If not, we'll go to the next topic, which is perhaps meterless Mondays, if we want to try to tackle that. If you recall, we talked about it. I think many of us were very interested in redoing it. So one of the questions was the day of the week, but there was also revenue-related questions on how much money can we stand to lose. If you recall, it was about each Monday was, I believe, $7,500. And for the total for the last summer was about $60,000, if I recall correctly. That was a $60,000 revenue loss by allowing meterless Mondays. But that was only for the second half or so of the summer. And so one of our questions was, do we want to expand meterless Mondays for the entire summer parking season, which would yield, I think Patrick detailed about $130,000. And Sharon, is that anywhere in the budget now? Have you anticipated that? Is your parking revenue on 100%, or have you removed a portion to allow for meterless Mondays?
No, Mayor. We have budgeted what we again conservatively, but we've not taken into account any loss. So your Commissioner Gossett's recommendation of 130 is pretty close to our recommendation, our estimate of 120,000 with the 16 Mondays that would occur in the upcoming summer season.
So if we go with the full summer season, you need to withdraw $120,000 from the parking budget, correct?
Yes, yes.
So what that means is if we go with the full season, not a half a season or the middle of the season, we need to reduce $120,000 from the budget, but we then need to make it up elsewhere. So the question would be, if we're going to do that, where elsewhere are we going to get those funding? Commissioner Gossett.
Yeah, and just as part of that equation, though, we also have to take into consideration, and I don't think we have any data really to deal with at this point, but the number of parking spaces that we will lose in going forward with outdoor dining. That will have an impact. I don't know how large or small, just depending on the number of participants of the food service operations. But again, that's part of the equation, that we're a baseline, the 120,000 plus whatever comes up with the additional money. So we could go up to 150, 200,000, $250,000 in funds of parking meter funds that are not going to be available to us, which is a conscious decision, but I think we need to have that part of the equation also.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. Maybe Evan or Sharon could do some quick figures. I think we have an estimated number of parking spaces consumed last year toward the end of the summer that indicated how many spaces were used for pedestrian ways, and we can put a figure on that. So maybe somebody could do a figure, because that also has to be added to the lost revenue for meterless Mondays. And again, if we remove that from the budget, then we need to find a way to make up for that funding, either by finding new funding sources or reducing our project list.
Well, if I might just say, Mayor and Commissioners, you know, we do, as we say many times, budget very conservatively. So there's not an exact science to this. I mean, certainly 120,000 We would have some expense savings and staffing, although we don't pull everyone off of the street. We do reduce the hours that the parking department is open if we're going to, not have active meters on. Not considerably, just maybe 2 hours. So instead of closing at 10, we close at 8. But because we do have walk-in traffic. But there's many different components and considerations to this. I think, generally speaking, we're safe to say that we, as you've seen, we try to build in a cushion wherever we can. And this year we were very surprised. We continue to be happy and about revenue that's coming in from unexpected sources. What we currently project. So there's not going to be, my answer is there's not going to be an exact science to what we increase in revenue versus decrease in parking. So, I think the general question for the commissioners is is that worth it to you to expect 120,000 at least decrease and anything else that we're looking at? Because I do think that come May, we're not actually going to be back to full speed where we expected to be in prior years.
Comment, and I believe at the last discussion we had on this, that the chamber was going to do some type of survey, and I don't know whether they've had an opportunity to complete that survey or analyze it, or if that could be, this portion of the conversation could be postponed until we have the results of that survey. I think that would be more informative to us to be able to make a decision, or at least an informed decision.
Yes, they have the results, but I didn't know we were going to be specifically talking about that here. So I told Carol that are we doing that at our Tuesday meeting next week? Maybe.
The Tuesday meetings are to be determined, so there's no definitive date. But we don't need to conclude this today.
And I think she's going to give a general update this afternoon on that survey, but they did complete it.
That would be helpful. Commissioner Byrne.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I was going to say the same thing that Commissioner Gossett and Gay just brought up, that I think we should wait to get that information and whatever data the chamber has on this to better inform us. But I guess for right now, before we get to that point, and I don't think that we should be conclusive this morning on it. But I'm certainly in favor of the concept of meterless Monday and staying with Mondays. We did do it for at least half of the season last year. I think it was a very positive reputation that started to build among people coming in on Mondays. So, I favor taking kind of the glass half full approach to this, that while there is an obvious and realistic revenue loss from the meters being turned off Monday evenings, I think we need to think about what is the gain to our community in the longer run. Carol can talk better than I can because she's got more comprehensive and probably more current information. But I think that there's a worry that maybe 30% plus of our restaurants may not reopen. And so I think any of these kinds of incentives that we can build in, we need to do. And, this worked well. All the reports that came in last year from the business community, from the Chamber and Main Street, were very positive about this. So I think we need to keep a very open mind as we talk about this in the budgeting process going forward.
Commissioner Byrne, I agree with you so wholeheartedly. I'm not opposed to this by any means and supportive of it. I just want to realize the investment that we're making. And as city manager said, this is not an exact science by any mean, but I think that we just have to be conscious of the investment we're making, whether it be 120,000 or $250,000. I'm still very much supportive of it, but we just have to be knowledgeable and gather as much data as we can to make those decisions. That's bottom line.
I fully agree. Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we'll defer further discussion and final conclusions to another time when after we can get a report from Carol. Walter Brittingham, do you have any comment on meterless Mondays, please? And Walter may not be there, and I think Gary Glass is still off. So that's all for the members of the public. Thank you very much. With that, I think some commissioners mentioned the discussion of the canal dock, and we can enter into that discussion. Anybody?
I just brought that up. I didn't see it part of the plan. I know that LRCIA has taken on the responsibility of maintenance for the first 2 years, as I understand that through conversations. But I don't see anything in the 5-year plan, or I don't guess it needed to be in the 5-year plan, perhaps of just maintenance or care. But is there any exposure for us with regards to liabilities or maintenance operations for cleaning, electrical bills, just type of thing? We have a new amenity in the city, but I just think we have to be aware that again, it's an investment for us, and what we need to be responsible for, and what LRCIA is responsible for with regards to go forward.
Commissioner Calusi?
Yes.
Can I just interject here, and then I'll. So Liz, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Liz did a very comprehensive spreadsheet about funding and capital assets, and included $10,000 for landscape maintenance. I'm wondering, Liz, if you're able to project that that spreadsheet while Commissioner Calusi speaks next.
Sure, the one with the long-term replacement information.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Commissioner Calusi.
Oh, no, that's okay. I mean, I appreciate that Commissioner Gossett has brought this up. There's a, whoops.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Okay. We need to talk, there's a lot to talk about. It's not just about the maintenance. We have some things that I think that, and city manager, you can let me know. I know that you all are looking at this, but we need to talk about the use of the dock. There's opportunity.
I'm sorry, can you take that off the screen until we get to it?
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, so we're going to have put out an RFP, I would think, that for people or companies that are interested in running a water taxi. Also RFP potentially for people who want to run eco tours from there. The dock is going to be open, and there's going to be rules for the usage in terms of when it's open, for fishing and for putting your kayak in, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, those are all things that we need to talk about. We've talked about, I know LRCIA has talked about a friends group for the dock to help with, continuing to maintain, because the LRCIA sees this as a real benefit to the city and also to the whole Sussex County in terms of where LRCIA is moving towards looking at additional amenities along the canal. So this is, just, a part of a bigger picture. So we're looking at trying to do, more things that's going to benefit everyone as far as this is concerned. So, I think we need to talk about some time in the future of having a meeting just about what kind of an RFP we want to put out for the opportunities for the water taxi, for eco tours, etc. So as far as maintenance, we're like, as I say, we're trying to put together a friends group to help with maintenance on that. I don't see it, and then we'll look at Liz's spreadsheet, but I think the first 2 years are on the LRCIA to maintain the dock, which I don't see. The landscaping is the majority of the maintenance. So, and we
Thank you, Pat. I think we're mixing two things. We're talking about finances now, or monies and revenue of the city, and then you're talking also about policies for the canal. And yes, we need to do that in the future.
Right.
Back to the introduction of this topic. I've also had an interest in what the maintenance is and what the maintenance costs, and that's maintenance of cleaning, steam cleaning the sidewalks once in a while, or all these other maintenance things. And I think my interest is more that if the LRCIA has committed 2 years of maintenance costs, then that means that's 2 years of maintenance the city should not have to perform. And my interest in that maintenance list is actually to see that the maintenance is being done on a regular schedule properly. And if it defaults, my concern is, will the city have to pay and how much? So those are some of my concerns. Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, I just thank you for those comments. Commissioner Cluzzi, I'm just, I guess I'm not clear, and maybe this is a further discussions at another period of time, but when you talk about eco tours and water taxis and what have you, are you suggesting that the city needs to hire a dock master to control this?
Oh, no, not a dock master, not at all. I just think that if, for example, if someone wants to run a water taxi, they're going to need to pay the city a fee for use of the dock. So perhaps it's, I don't know, $5,000 a year or $3,000. I don't know what the number is. But it should generate some revenue for the city that's going to help with potentially doing some maintenance for maintenance in the future. So I don't think the dock necessarily I don't think it should be free to commercial users to use the dock. So if you have someone running an eco tour out there, if they, whatever usage and however it's determined, and this is the thing that I think perhaps the city manager might have talked a little bit with the city manager of Lewis, that we, try to work together on this type of thing that we would be dealing with.
Well, I certainly understand it's a need there. I guess that's a further, kind of in the weeds discussion. I don't think we need to get there now, but
right.
You talk about timing, and if people's launching a kayak or somebody's standing there fishing and the water taxi pulls up and the eco tour pulls up at the same time, it seems like there needs to be some overseer, if you will, or something that needs to happen. Again, this is for a further discussion at a later time, but the rules of the road or operations, I would have hoped that those would have been determined before we opened the thing, but apparently.
Well, that's what I think is that's exactly what I'm addressing right now. And I know that the city manager has already been talking with staff about some of these things. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon, but I know that you've chatted about some signage and so forth.
Yeah, so we are doing that. We're actually working with the LRCIA with that for signage, but I mentioned to the mayor this past week or the week before that we are getting requests for, who do I contact to have my paddleboard business there. I have heard, water taxis in the future. So I suggested to Mayor Mills that the commissioners have a discussion about, future uses of the dock and how to prepare for that. We do need, as Commissioner Gossett just mentioned, we will need some overseer enforcement, whether it's a dock master or, someone there. Specifically, is to be determined. But if the commissioners are going to permit commercial use at the dock, then obviously we need to keep an eye on it.
Well, then coming
And-
back to this discussion, this is a budget meeting. Do we need
Yes.
to guess and budget some monies to operate the canal dock this summer?
So, Mayor, I have a question about what you mentioned a few minutes ago. So, as far as maintenance, so the first 2 years are LRCIA, and you mentioned power washing, pulling weeds, some landscaping. Are you suggesting, because in my budget considerations, if the city's going to do that, I don't feel as though we need to include that because our staff are getting paid anyway. But if you're suggesting that power washing and everything ancillary associated with maintenance there for the first 2 years is LRCIA's responsibility, as I know it is, but I thought we were going to, help out with some things, then I would hope that would be specified.
Well, again, that's where I think it all starts with a list. What is the maintenance list? What is the maintenance program? Because the LRCIA, and my caution here is, how much is this going to cost the city? I'd like to know in advance. Do we need to budget money? Because my assumption is that by LRCIA saying they will do the maintenance for the first 2 years, that is inclusive of everything. That's not just coming out once in a week and sweeping the sidewalk and then leaving the city with all the other maintenance that has to be done. Repairing anything that gets damaged or repainting something that gets scratched. That's where I want that list ahead of time so we don't have those surprises.
And another aspect there, and I'm not sure of, but what you talk about commercial operations, how does that affect the city's exposure or liability insurance? Is that something that we need to increase our premiums, or is that a cost that we would experience going forward?
It would be, and our insurance broker is getting back to me on that. I don't know if it'll be, that any significant amount of money, because some of it comes under our umbrella policy that we have.
Well, hopefully it won't. I mean, we need to be covered, obviously, and I
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll get back to Liz.
Spreadsheet.
Sure. I have a copy and paste of the maintenance schedule that were on the plans. I mean, they were on page like 28 in size 4 font, so I can share those too. But I haven't edited them or formatted it or anything. So, okay. All right. So you guys see the Word document there?
Yeah, you had a
Yes, we
spreadsheet up
can,
there.
Liz.
I have both, so I don't know which one you want to look at. I have that spreadsheet of the long-term replacement costs, and then I have the regular maintenance schedule.
Okay. Yeah.
So tell me which one you want to see first.
I think it would be helpful to go to the maintenance schedule, because your long-term is for most of the infrastructure there.
Yeah. All right. So like I said, I haven't formatted it yet. It was just a copy and paste. But if you read through it, the majority of it is regular landscape maintenance. So nothing new there versus what we normally do. There's power washing. They have it recommended a couple of times a year. And whenever you power wash pavers, we have to redo the sand because basically you power wash it all out. So, and then the other thing, more than an actual maintenance line item, will be the inspection of a lot of the like erosion control things. So keeping an eye to make sure there's a couple of really strong slopes there that have mulch and the rest of them have riprap. So to make sure there is no erosion around them, that the mulch hasn't washed down, all that type of stuff, because that could be a 15-minute a month problem where we just rake some stuff up and treat the weeds and the riprap, or if things don't go well and we have erosion, it could be multiple thousands.
If I could interject something here, just going back to the power washing. First, Liz, we don't have any, it's all concrete. We don't have pavers in the ground, so I don't think there's sand involved.
They said, right, add sand to joints of pavers. I believe I think they're talking about maybe it was just a mistake in the specifications. I don't know. I'm trying to think back if there were any pavers anywhere. I mean, maybe they're talking about the wall.
Initially, we had pavers, but the cost was too much, so we decided to go with concrete instead.
Okay, well, that makes it easier. So we can literally, we can just delete that.
Right.
Boom, right off.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't edited or gone through. I just kind of looked at the landscape stuff and talked to Public Works about the power washing.
So, as far as, I would assume that, or I would hope that the city would do this work, and then they felt like they needed to invoice the LRCIA for the first 2 years for whatever work they've done, and then that's fine. I don't think you want the LRCIA to be bringing in contractors to do work that the city already does. That doesn't seem that it would make as much sense. Am I right about that?
That seems reasonable to me, whether it's a reimbursement situation. That might be better for a finance question, logistically, how they want to handle it. But since we're taking ownership of the structure, it's our liability. It definitely should be us coordinating the maintenance and contractors and all that. And plus, like with the landscaping, it'll be in addition to a contract we already have. So we'll already have preferred terms, the specs and everything completely set up. So it would be much less than if, say, you contracted with an outside vendor for the same thing. Right. And then the power washing, whether we do that in-house or we have somebody do that, that's generally not a super expensive thing. I want to say a couple of years ago, I had all the concrete benches power washed in all the parks, and it was only like $3,000, and that's a lot of running around and no water filling. So I would think this would be less.
Well, again, for me, this exercise is to point out that LRCIA doing maintenance for 2 years, it's not free to the city. And I think people need to know that we are contributing something, apparently, and that needs to be noted. Anything else from the commissioners?
I'm sorry, did I understand that?
Take that off the screen. I can see all the commissioners again, please.
Sorry, did you say something?
If you would take that off the screen. There you go. I can see. Is there any commissioners? Nobody has their hand up. With that, I'll go to the members of the public. Walter, do you have any comments? Walter was off last time. I think we don't have any more members of the public. They don't have the stamina that we do, apparently. We'll go to the next item of business is whatever you have on your mind. Liz, I want to thank you for being here today and participating in both these discussions. Very much appreciated. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I have a couple of just very general sort of total items in the budget. First of all, I did notice between the first budget meeting and this that the revenue in the general fund has gone up about $1 million, and I'm assuming that that's attributable to the addition of the sale of 84 Kent, right?
That's correct.
And I did notice that the number that's been included in there is the same as the current appraisal number. So, but are there going to be no costs associated with the sale, or are we expecting the bids to be so much over that appraisal that we'll be able to net that amount?
We put the the $1 million in, just as a ballpark. I think, any costs associated with it, we'll be able to handle internally from the operating budget. And I don't expect that to be much.
Okay. Well, I didn't know, like, if some of the bids, I know we don't have a realtor, but what if some of the people that are buying do, then we'd have to pay them, right?
We're not paying anything.
Yeah, okay, all right, so there's no cost like that, all right. The most interesting thing I discovered was that the operating budget seems to have also gone up by $1 million. And I know this morning that you detailed some of the additions, and I wasn't adding them as you went along, so I don't actually know what the total is. But I had previously been under the impression that we could earmark, or that we were looking at earmarking the funds from the sale of 84 Kent for specific things, preferably capital budget, but even if it was in operating, very specific things. And suddenly it just seems like the revenue's there, and all of a sudden the operating has gone up by the same amount.
So I think
I can explain that if you'd
Yeah,
like.
go ahead, Bert.
We had additional revenue, an extra $1 million, but if you'll notice on the debt service line that the debt service went up.
Oh.
And the amount of that increase is going to be directed toward principal reduction on our outstanding debt that we have with USDA.
Okay.
And that accomplishes a couple of things. One thing, we have to be concerned as we approach the city's debt limit. And I put it as a reduction of principal because essentially we're removing an asset from the city's books. And I thought it was appropriate that we apply that toward debt service. And that also gives us a little more of a cushion in the event that we have some kind of an emergency and we need to seek borrowings from an institution so the money really didn't get spent. It was really a balance sheet transaction. Now, some of that money went in to increase our contingency. You'll notice that increased from about 127,000. I think it's to around over 300. So I don't think we haven't really spent that money on operating items.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad to know that. I mean, I think so. My second kind of general category question is about the CIP and kind of where we go from here, because, and Commissioner Calusi raised this earlier when she was talking about the out years and how a few years from now we have these huge numbers, and how are we going to get there? And we started out this fiscal year with a $5.5 million capital improvement budget, and the projection is now a little over 4.5, which is fine, expected with the pandemic. But next year is 4.8, and last year we projected that 2022 would be 5.7. So, this year was supposed to be 5.5. It was supposed to go up a little incrementally this next year. And then it went up more. It went up to like 8 for the third year out last year. And this year we're going in the opposite direction. We're going back with the out years being ballooned even more. And, I understand that some of that, that most of that is conservatism and also not knowing how these next 3 months are going to end up. I totally get that. But at the same time, right now we're showing $1 million profit, if for lack of a better word, for this year. And I question, given that we're already behind on infrastructure and a number of improvements we want to make, and a master plan for Jura Park, and all these things that were set aside because of the pandemic, and now there's this newfound focus on Rehoboth Beach. So we start from being behind. We have a newfound focus, which also I think increases the impact on our infrastructure, more people coming to town, more of a need to stay up to date, that I don't think this is the time to cut back. And I wonder if, because of that, not knowing how the end of the year is going to turn out, just like we talked about budgeting the tot lot for a certain amount, and then with the understanding that if there's grant money, it would be less. If we can look and for the next meeting, maybe at increasing the capital budget by some number, with the understanding that pending the end of this year, or pending how things go with the pandemic, even into the next fiscal year, that we would look at deferring some of those. Because I'd like to try to not stay behind for another year.
So if I may, a couple of things here to point out. Not only are we budgeting conservatively, but, you know, with the uncertainties about the pandemic, we don't know if the next fiscal year will be, frankly, more damaging than this year. We don't know that. And then the second thing is some of the capital items for this year that were delayed have to deal with actual funding for not just design but construction. So we have to point that out to you in a clear fashion. I know Mr. Williams can do that for you off the top of his head, but there are some items in the capital CIP for next year that moved to the 2023 fiscal year because of those that were put off this year.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. Yep, it does.
And is that correct, Mr. Williams?
Yes, it is.
That makes sense. And so I'm just more thinking of an overall, if we should, because we've already today talked about moving the Lake Jura master plan 61,000 back in, and maybe there aren't very many like that. I don't know. But yeah, I just wondered if we could take another look at it, and if we're stuck with the 4.8, or if we can get closer to what we were supposed to do for next year.
Well, we can certainly explain and take another look at that. I think my experience with grant funding, federal grant funding, like in 2009, 2010 with ARRA funds, if those funds are available, certainly the city's going to apply for them. We need to have a project in the pipeline, usually, an infrastructure project, and we will have that based on what we're doing or what we're trying to do now with the design and moving forward with DelDOT, which we'll explain just briefly this afternoon. And I think that's all positive. We're certainly going to apply for that.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it. That's all I have.
Commissioner Legree? You're muted.
This is probably pie in the sky, but my eye keeps going to the wastewater capital improvement that goes from 1.5 million in 2023 to 7.7 million in 2024, and then hangs in there at 7.6 million in 2025. And I know that Public Works Director Williams has mentioned that those things might be spread out, and I know he has a schedule, and I'd like for him to share that with us and just see where we're headed there, because like Commissioner Gay, I see in 2023 we're only hitting 1.5 million for wastewater improvement, or for enterprise fund total, and then in 2024 we jumped to 7.7. We're going to just get knocked in the socks if we don't think about that ahead of time. So I'm still looking for that schedule, and maybe just a discussion on how we're going to manage those huge projects in the out years. And now the out years are only 2 years away. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Your Honor.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, I think if you think, looking at those two increments of roughly $6 million each, if you recall back to our rate study days, that project is the phase 4 project down at the wastewater treatment plant, which is to be paid for out of the rates. So, when we did this kind of balancing of the rate increase, we did a chunk where we're collecting more in revenue for the first 4 years of the rate studies period in order to start banking some of that, because when we get to the out year and need to do phase 4, we are going to pay for it out of rates. And you'll also recall that at year 4 of that 12-year rate study plan, we have another significant increase in our wastewater rates. So that was recognized back then that phase 4 was going to have to come out of capital, out of our rate structure, because of where we were with our SRF loan and our city's debt limit. So that was a conscious decision we made last year or a year and a half ago. But I can certainly put together that schedule that we've shared obviously before, and that I think you have as well, that lays out the various phases, the cost of each phase, and when we expect them to happen.
Mm-hmm. I have those. I do too. I have the schedule that you had a year ago and even before. My question is, are we going to be able to rearrange some of those projects so that we don't just knock everybody in the head come 2024, and that we can somehow attenuate those things? We have a water fund that's making a little bit of money, and that would help go a long way. And we talked about whether or not the county's going to up their usage, and I haven't heard another word about that. You may not know any, and you may not have any information to add to that, but I sure would like to hear how things are going, when the biosolid plant comes online, just a bunch of things that we know nothing about right now. And yeah, that would be good information. Thanks, Kevin.
Certainly.
Again, this is your opportunity to bring up anything. Are there any further questions? Anybody want to share anything?
Mayor, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Just quickly, so we don't have to do any homework. Getting back to the Main Street ancillary costs of electric. Bert was able to find that in the audit report. Of course, this was for the year 2020. Is that right, Bert? I'm sorry, 2019. 20, yes. So that amount is $2,748 for electric for Main Street.
And of course, we give them, we give them a little over $2,700 for electrics by taking care of that. We also give them free rent, I believe.
That's correct.
That has some value to it. And I just wanted to make note that the total contribution by the city exceeds the cash contribution of $60,000. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll make a comment on the rent piece too, and that probably in that footnote, which I prepared, probably I should have had a line that addressed the rent issue. The actual dollar amount, I felt we had to have. I wanted to have a hard number that would not involve an estimate. So when it came to the rent piece, I thought, well, we do give free rent to Main Street, but we also have the historical societies sitting on city ground. So, you can kind of take this thing. I think it's better addressed through a narrative than trying to go ahead and take that rent and put it in a hard number, because the number we have now, I think you can hang your hat on, because they're based on actual rates. But I don't know what the ground rent's worth down at the Historical Society, and I don't know exactly what the square footage would be. So I felt it was better not to include that in those numbers, but we'll address it next year in a footnote and make a comment regarding the rent. But I don't think it's appropriate to really quantify that and include that in the number that we provided, because I think it could result in a little distortion, because it involves estimating.
Do you recall what, when the chamber was in that building, we charged them rent. It was not free. Do you recall what we charged them?
It's an annual lease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have the
I
numbers here.
No, I don't have that either.
Memory, for some reason, I want to say it was $1,000 a month.
Well,
Well, is it fair to put $1,000 a month in the number for Main Street and then ignore what the potential ground rent would be for the Historical Society? So I was thinking in terms of consistency. I didn't want to play one organization off against another. I mean, I don't know what ground rent's worth on that building, but I think it would be pretty significant.
all right. Thank you very much. Commissioner Caluzzi?
Yes, just a final thing from me, and sort of underlining what Commissioner Gay said earlier about, all eyes are going to be on Rehoboth Beach. We've become nationally, somewhat recognized. So I guess, Mayor, you and I think Commissioner Legree and Commissioner Gossett ran on the idea of upgrading or doing a streetscape for Baltimore and Wilmington. Did you all ever talk about, I guess, when you're campaigning, what it was that you wanted to do? I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my arms around that again, what Commissioner Gay had mentioned is maybe we should be moving some of these design elements or conceptual designs up, so we're not waiting too long till we're able to actually do these things. And again, gives us an opportunity for some grant funding for infrastructure.
Well, I can answer for myself. In short, it's just upgrading the streetscapes of Wilmington, Baltimore, and the connector streets to mirror the streetscape of Rehoboth Avenue. That's it, essentially. Of course, when we form a Wilmington-Baltimore Streetscape Task Force, I think that's the opportunity to glean more ideas from the community. Sharon, do you want to share anything on funding mechanisms for this project? Because as you all know, we've sort of had a kickoff by initially asking for RFPs for design, and we're moving in that direction of getting somebody to come in and help with the original design. But then you're right, Pat, there's extra steps afterwards, such as engineering and then actual construction. Sharon, do you want to share anything?
We can do that now, Mayor, or, we were going to talk about it at the meeting now. We're happy to do it now. Kevin, you want to just explain that a bit?
Sure. So as we talked about earlier, we put together an RFP to go solicit a consultant to come in and develop kind of the concept plan, what I'd like to call a feasibility study for what could or couldn't be possible on those particular streets that we mentioned. Part of that concept development would be, an interaction of a selected working group that would all be able to provide input. That would involve public meetings so we can get it from the general public as well, but come up with ideas for what we wanted to move forward with, if anything, on those streets. That would take about 6 to 8 months to do. So the target we had set up was to have it done by this time next year, so next fall, so that we would be able to then continue with the momentum if we wanted to go forward with a actual design for a piece of it or all of it, because we would want to then get that into budget for next year. So depending upon, how much of a chunk we want to take off at any given time, we would then tailor, the advertisement for a designer for 1 year and then a construct, the following year. Hopefully we would still go through the TAP process, and they've been generous to us before on our streetscapes at the 80-20 kind of rate. So I would just think we'd probably tailor our packages to something where we could maximize use of grant funding for that. Setting that aside for just a moment, while we were working on that RFP, Evan and I put together kind of a grant application for what DelDOT offers with respect to that feasibility study and concept planning under their TAP program. And lo and behold, under that program, it's 100%, the concept plan is 100% funded by DelDOT. So we were fortunate to learn 10 days ago, I guess, or thereabouts, that we were selected for that program, and that DelDOT is going to do that concept plan / feasibility study for us at zero cost to us. They said they could also meet the timeline that we had desired to have it done by our next year's budgeting process. So it looks like it's going to line up very well with what we had intended to do. There were some things in our RFP that they weren't really interested in doing with respect to under their concept plan, with respect to underground utilities and some of those things. So that's easy enough to pull out. We can do our investigations at the same time that they're doing their study and find out if there is anything that we would want to kind of tie all together under a particular design and construction project. For this year, the intent is the concept to get done, you know, via many meetings and lots of interaction with the task force. And then by this time next year, have something to go forward with and select for, you know, hard design for the following fiscal year, looking to construct then that third fiscal year.
And this is Evan too, if I could just chime in as well. So while Kevin and I were working on putting together sort of the RFP for the project, we actually became aware of a Building Blocks for Sustainable Communities grant, which is provided by the Environmental Protection Agency. And that grant actually provides targeted technical assistance to communities based on a variety or using a variety of different tools that have demonstrated results and applications. So one of the tools actually that they had put out for this year relates to mobility and transportation, and in particular, sort of street planning and street design. So I prepared basically a 2-page letter of interest for that grant, and I had submitted that. We heard back several weeks ago that we were selected to move on to sort of the second round of that grant. So Kevin and I have a call, and Sharon have a call scheduled for next week to discuss with them. The purpose of the call is for them to sort of get a better idea of the project and decide whether or not they would like to award us the full technical assistance grant. If we're not awarded the full technical assistance grant, they said that we will be offered sort of their help desk support, and that just involves 2 to 4 different calls with the points of contact here, and they can set up meetings and conversations with federal agency staff and other experts in the fields of the Economic Development Administration, the FEMA, HUD, USDA, et cetera. So regardless, it sounds like we could get some help sort of with part of the planning, community engagement component to see what we really envision for Baltimore and Wilmington Avenues.
Very good. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions on anything? If not, thank you for a good session. Thank you, everybody that participated. Our next meeting is budget meeting number 3 is February 8th at 1:30 p.m. It will be following the workshop meeting on February 8th. And then our special budget meeting number 4, if we need it, would be February 19th at 9 a.m. With that, I thank everybody, and the reminder that we'll convene again at 2 o'clock today for our regular virtual meeting. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
Giddy up.